All right, welcome back to another episode of Phrasing FM, a podcast where I talk about languages and my experience building an app to learn them. So, I've been learning languages for decades now, and I would say that in the past, every time I've learned a language, learn is a very good verb for what I'm doing. It's very similar to math. You learn the foundations, you learn the rules, and you slowly build on top of them. You learn the basic words, you learn how to interchange them, and you start with this very hierarchical process to build your way up and progress through the language learning levels. Now, I have a bunch of problems with this once you start to get to the later levels. One of the biggest ones being that all of these rules and foundations and conjugations and tables will eventually fall out of your head. And there's no way that you can hold on to these forever without just constantly coming back and reviewing them. And I'm not entirely sure that's very helpful to do, because at some point you just need to start speaking the language very naturally. It just comes out. You're not thinking about the rules, you're not thinking about the conjugations, you're not thinking about tables. Words come out of your mouth and they are correct. Just like when you're speaking your native language. You're not thinking this is the present tense, this is the past tense, first person, masculine, feminine, if you have genders in your language. It's just what sounds right. And so that's the point that I'm really trying to get with phrasing. And I feel like I am on that path with phrasing. I feel like phrasing is making that very accessible. And I had this experience last night when I was using phrasing where it didn't feel like I was learning the language. I'm definitely making progress. I'm learning a bunch, but it doesn't feel like this structured learning like somebody would use in math. It feels much more organic, and it feels the words that just kept coming to me last night were that it feels like I'm decoding the language. It feels like I'm finding all of these little pieces and how they connect together. And it feels like an inversion of learning in some sense. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up is because I've added a bunch of expressions to phrasing over the years. I've only really been seriously using it now for 6 or 8 months. I'd say that's when it really got good enough to start making good progress. But I've been adding expressions for years. And especially in the beginning, I was really not concerned with the quality of the expressions. I was building the application, I was developing it. I just wanted expressions in there. I didn't really care if they were correct, weird, applicable, or anything of that sort. I just wanted things to test the application with. And I still have a lot of those expressions in my reviews, and I see them every day. And it's made me realize that the content of the expressions matters so much less than I thought it did. I have expressions with mistakes, with cringe jokes, with weird usage of adjectives where you wouldn't use them, slang that doesn't go where the slang goes. And for me, this is fine because I know this. But I also think it's really fine in general, because a lot of other applications, a lot of other methods, you are learning these sets. You are learning templates. You are learning entire sentences. You are learning rules. And all of these things have to be correct in order for you to use them. The goal is, in a lot of other applications, to add a sentence that you will then later say. Like, you will use this sentence at some point in your life. And with phrasing, I don't think that's necessarily the case, especially once you start to add longer expressions. This really starts to go away because these expressions get to be too long for you to hold in your head as a set phrase. And I'm only talking about like 15 to 30 words. Somewhere after the point of 15, you really start to lose this ability to parrot back what you're saying. And it starts to become a lot less important, the content of the cards themselves. They can be strange expressions. They can even have little mistakes, weird translations. It really becomes fine because the stuff you're learning is much more the granular level of the individual words, how they connect to other words in the phrase, in the sentence, in the expression, and most importantly, how they connect across different expressions. So you start to build this map, this linking between all of these different little pieces of the words. And then you can really see where things kind of sound awkward, or where things kind of sound wrong, or where things sound really right. You can start to make these connections across different pieces that I don't know. It feels a lot more like an exploration process, a discovery, or just an encoding. You want to load these patterns into your brain. You don't want to load these set of phrases or words or things like that you're going to use. It's not a matter of memorization by any means. And this is very, I feel like phrasing is very unique in this regard because it's a spaced repetition system. Spaced repetition systems are meant for memorization. It's this immediate recall of seeing information and just ingraining this into your brain. But if anybody's used spaced repetition seriously in the past before with Anki or Memrise or any of these other applications, a lot of times you'll be learning a word in these systems, in these applications, and you'll get this word right every single time. It's not a difficult word. You see the word, you see the card, you know immediately the answer, and you move on. And then you come across the word in context, and you have no idea what it means. That information is not available for the recall. And because you're learning all of these things in these isolated, paratable fashions where there are these set phrases, these set chunks, these set rules that you want to be able to recall whenever you need. And that's not really how language works. Language works with all of these dynamic moving parts. Every sentence is a little bit unique. Everybody's accent is a little bit different. And what you want to be doing is when you're learning a language is learning how to map this all out. How do all of these relate? When you hear one word, you don't want to just know the immediate translation of it. You want to know the 100 words that this could be connected to. If somebody starts a sentence with one word, how is that sentence likely going to end? Your brain, when you're listening to somebody speak, when you're listening to me speak right now, your brain is actually doing this. It's processing information and it's making predictions on what's going to come next. So it doesn't have to listen to every single word in real time. It's doing little predictions because it's heard these patterns so many times. It's done all of this pattern matching. It's done this decoding so that as the speech comes, you don't have to process nearly as much. And I feel like that's really the process that's going on when I'm using phrasing. I'm seeing these words in these weird, awkward sentences that I would never say. A lot of these are just written by AI or they're really bad subtitle translations. The quality isn't good. And still, I'm learning a lot of the language and how do these relate? And I'm starting to see the mistakes and the awkwardness in these sentences where they stand out to me because they're not really fitting in the map that I'm building in my head. And yeah, I just wanted to talk about this. This thought came to me where it doesn't feel like I'm doing this bottom up learning of a language. It's not this rule based math style of learning, but it's much more this decoding, this cartography, this mapping of these languages, the discovering of the different connections. And I'm building all of those little links between not even words or phrases, but sometimes just sounds, sometimes entire phrases. It really depends and it really varies. And this dynamicism, oh wow. Um, it really is just enabling a much more organic, fun way to learn. And I'm very, very curious to see how that progresses as I start to go through these languages and as I progress through the levels. I'm feeling really good about it. I'm very excited about it. And I think you might be too. So that's the episode for today. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one.